All right, so here's the given function. So you have f of x is 4 times x take away 5. Now we all know that f of x is just another name for y. Okay, so this is in function notation. F of x is in function notation. All right, so we're going to go ahead and find the inverse of 4x take away 5. Okay, let's take a look at step 1. So first thing we have to do is replace f of x with y. Okay, so we have to change f of x to y. So f of x is now becomes a y. So y is 4x take away 5. Okay, so that's step 1. That's easy, right? All you got to do is change f of x to a y. Step 2 is to switch the x and the y. Okay, so we're going to switch the x and the y. The y is now an x. The x is now a y. Okay, so what we did is we switched the two, okay? So we switched the x and the y. That's also pretty easy. Next thing we have to do is solve for y. So to solve for y means we got to get the y. Okay, we got to get the y all by itself on one side of the equal sign. So we got to get this all alone on one side of the equal sign. So we have to get rid of the minus 5 and we have to get rid of the times 4. Okay, so how do we get rid of the minus 5? Well, to make it completely go away, we want to add 5 to it. Okay, so we add 5. If you do it to the right hand side, you got to add 5 to the left hand side of the equal sign. Okay, so we're adding 5 to both sides of the equal sign. So now negative 5 plus 5 is gone, right? And we're going to bring down the 4y. We're going to bring down the equal sign. So now when you add these two numbers, or these two terms, you're going to get x plus 5. Okay, and then what do we do after this? How do we get this by itself? So, well, we have to get rid of the multiply with 4. So how do you get rid of multiply with 4? You do the opposite. What's opposite of multiply? You divide. So if you divide this by 4, you have to divide this by 4, and you have to divide this by 4. Okay, so the 4 over 4 cancels out. 4 over 4 is 1. Then here you have x over 4, which is the same as 1x over 4, right? And then plus 5 over 4, and that's what y is. Next, step 4 is to replace y with the inverse notation. So replace y, so we got to replace this with the inverse notation. 1x over 4, or just x over 4, plus 5 over 4. So then the y is going to be f to the negative 1 of x. Okay, so that's the inverse notation. Or, I mean, you can rewrite this. This right here, you can make it into one fraction because they have the same denominator. So you can go x plus 5 is your numerator. and then 4 is your denominator. And then it's the same thing, so you can keep it like this, or you can make it to that. That's how you find the inverse of a given function. Okay, so let's take a look at another one. Find the inverse of a given function. So we have a different function here. So we have f of x is 2 plus 3 over 5x. Okay, so we're going to find the inverse of this function. And we have an easy procedure that we can use to find the inverse step by step. So let's take a look at step 1. So step 1 is to replace f of x with y. So we change f of x to y. So f of x now becomes a y is 2 plus 3 over 5x. Okay, so we replace f of x with y because y is f of x. All right, so step 2 is to switch the x and the y. So the y becomes an x is 2 plus 3 over 5y. Okay, so that's step 2. That's really easy. All we did was switch the x and the y. And then step 3 is to solve for y. So with this one, you got to get the y by itself. So we have to get rid of the positive 2. And then we have to get rid of the multiply by 3/5. So how do I get rid of the positive 2? How do I make that go away? I would have to minus 2, right? Because opposite of positive 2 is negative 2. So then I got to put negative 2 on this side. All right, so here we bring down the 3 over 5y. And then positive 2 with negative 2 is 0. Then bring down the equal sign. And then here, x minus 2 is just x minus 2. Okay, and then we got to get rid of this. So how do we get rid of the 3/5? Well, we multiply by the reciprocal of 3/5. Okay, what's the reciprocal of 3/5? The reciprocal of 3/5 is 5 over 3. So if I multiply this by 5 over 3, I can cross cancel. So if I multiply this term by 5 over 3, I got to multiply this whole thing by 5 over 3. So here, 5 cancels out with 5 one time, so that cancel, and then 3 cross cancel with this. So you're left with just 1. Okay, so you got 15 over 15 turns into 1, so you're left with just y. Now over here, you're going to end up with 5 over 3x. Take away 10 over 3. Okay, so this is your inverse right here. And then the last thing we need to do is rewrite this by replacing y with the inverse notation. So over here, I'm going to have 5 over 3 x take away 10 over 3 is, we're going to replace the y here, that y, we're going to replace it with the f to the negative 1 x. Or you can rewrite this because they have the same denominator, right? You can also rewrite into one fraction. So 5x minus 10 all over 3. Okay, and that's my inverse. Okay, so this is your inverse of the given function. Okay, we're going to look at one more. Okay, so this is to find the inverse of the given function. Again, we're going to find the inverse of this using the procedure we have. Okay, follow it step by step. Okay, so step 1 is to replace f of x with y. So f of x, we're going to change f of x to y. So f of x is the same as y, negative 3 over 4x plus 5. Step 2 is to switch the x and the y. So the y is an x. Okay, see how the y becomes an x. Negative 3 over 4 y. So your x is a y now. You switch the x and the y, and then plus 5. Third thing we have to do, step 3, is to solve for y. So solve for y means we got to get the y here all by itself. Okay, so we got to get rid of this plus 5. And we got to get rid of this negative 3 over 4. So how do we get rid of the plus 5? How do we make it completely go away? Well, we do the opposite of plus 5. We minus 5. So if you minus 5 here, you get a minus 5 this side. Okay, so here positive 5 with negative 5 is 0 when you combine those two numbers. So these comes out to 0. And then we bring down the negative 3 over 4y. These two become x take away 5. Okay, we're still solving for y. So now, how do we get rid of this negative 3 over 4? Well, you multiply by the reciprocal of negative 3 over 4. And that is 4 over negative 3. Okay, just flip it. So reciprocal of negative 3 over 4 is 4 over negative 3. If you multiply the right side by 4 over negative 3, you have to multiply this side by the same exact number, which is 4 over negative 3. Okay? So you got to do the exact same thing. Whatever you do to the right side, you got to do exact same thing to the left side. When we multiply these two numbers, you can cross cancel or you can multiply across. So it's turned into 1, right? So all these are cancel. So you're left with y. So on this side, you have to distribute the negative 4 over 3. So when you distribute negative 4 over 3 times x is 4x over negative 3. And then plus, because negative times negative is positive, 20 over 3. Okay, so this is your inverse. Okay, so one last thing we have to do is replace y with the inverse notation. So we have the inverse. The inverse is negative 4x over 3 plus 20 over 3. And then the inverse right here, we're going to replace y with the inverse notation. Next thing I'm going to do is show you how to verify if two functions are the inverse of each other. Okay, and we're going to look at two examples where we have to show that one function is the inverse of the other function or one function is not the inverse of the other function. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, let's take a look at this one. The pair of the given functions are inverses of each other. So we want to show if this is true or false. Now to show if f of x is the inverse of g of x and g of x is the inverse of f of x, okay, you got to show this. Two functions, f of x and g of x, are inverses of each other if f of g of x, okay, you got to show f of g of x comes out to x, and then you have to show g of f of x also comes out to x. These two functions are inverses if and only if this is true. So what we got to do is we got to first show, okay, we have to show f of g of x. See if that comes out to x. Okay, now if this does not come out to x, if you do this and it does not come out to x, then you're done. Okay, you can say that they're not inverses. Okay, but if it comes out to x, then you have to continue to show the other one. Okay, so to show this, you're gonna take, you see how g of x is inside? Okay, you're gonna take g of x and you're gonna plug that into the x of f of x, and then you simplify. Okay, so it's gonna look like this. So f of g of x okay, because g of x is the inside function, you're gonna take g of x. So my f of x is -4, and then I'm going to substitute g of x in here, and then plus 8. Okay, so what goes in that parenthesis? Okay, what goes in that parenthesis? It's an x, right? See it, -4x. This is my x, plus 8. So my x is going to be -1/4 x plus 2. So now I got to simplify. Okay, so to simplify, I would have to distribute the -4 inside to get rid of that parenthesis. So negative times negative is positive. So here's going to be +4/4, which is going to be 1x. And then 1x the same as x. And then -4 times 2 is -8. And then we bring over the plus 8, right? And then -8, +8, they add up to 0. And then you're left with just x. Okay, so this one's good, so that means you have to keep on going. Okay, so now we got to show the other one. We have to show g of f of x comes out to x. Okay, so we're just doing the other way around. So you see how f of x is inside this time? So what you have to do when f of x is inside, so what you have to do now is take this is the f of x, right? And then you're going to substitute that with this x's. Okay, because f of x is the inside function. So we're going to have -1/4x, -1/4, and then x, and then plus 2. See the plus 2's on the what it is negative 1 over 4 times x. So what are we putting in there? Okay, we're going to put what f of x is in there. So f of x is negative 4x plus 8. So negative 4x plus 8. Okay, and now we just have to simplify. So to simplify, we would have to distribute the negative 1 over 4. Okay, you have to distribute. So negative times negative is positive. 4 over 4 is 1. So you're left with just x. Okay, when you multiply these two. And then negative 1 over 4 times 8. 1/4 of 8 is negative 2, because 4 goes into 8 2 times. And then negative 2 because of this negative. And then bring down this plus 2. All right, simplify. Negative 2 plus 2 is 0. So those are gone. So then you're left with x. Okay, so they are true. Okay, so look, f of g of x, we show it came out to x. G of f of x, we show it came out to x also. So it's true. So therefore we can say that g of x is the inverse of f of x, and f of x is the inverse of g of x. Okay, so the two function inverses. Okay, so we're going to take a look at one more. So this one, true or false? The pair of the given functions are inverses of each other. So you're given two functions. F of x is 2x take away 8. G of x is 1/2 x plus 4. Now to show that f of x is the inverse of g of x and g of x is the inverse of f of x, okay, you have to show this. You have to show that these two are true. So you have to show f of g of x. Okay, so if that comes out to x, you have to continue to show g of f of x. Now, if that also comes out to x, so if this is true, then you can say that these two functions are inverses of each other. So to do this, notice that g of x is inside, right? So g of x is the inside function. So what you have to do, okay, is to find f of g of x, you are going to take g of x, so this is your g of x right here, and you are going to replace that, you're going to plug it in where x is of the f of x. So it's going to look like this, 2x, so we're going to plug something in for x, minus 8. So what is that something? Well, that something is going to be what g of x is, and that is going to be 1/2 x plus 4. Okay? You see how we took this and we plug it in here? All right, so now you have to simplify, see what it comes out to. So we're going to simplify this, distribute the 2. So half of 2 is 1, so that's just going to be 1x. So we can just write it out as x. 1x and x is the same thing. And then 2 times 4 is 8. and then bring down the minus 8. So now positive 8 with negative 8, so those add up to 0, right? Okay, so you're left with just x. So this one is true. So this is true. All right, let's see what happened to the next one. So the next one, we have to work this out. Okay, so we're doing g of f of x. So that means, because f of x is inside, right? See how f of x is inside? So you're going to take f of x, and then you're going to plug that into the x of the g of x. So it's going to look like this. So you're going to have 1/2, right? See it right here, 1/2 x. 1/2 times x. We're going to replace, we're going to substitute, we're going to plug something in for x. Okay, what is that something? What do we put in for x? Well, we put in what f of x is, which is the 2x minus 8. So 2x minus 8 goes in here. And then we distribute the 1/2. Okay, so what is 1/2 of 2x? Well, half of 2 is 1. So you're left with 1x, so just going to be x. Then 1/2 of 8. 1/2 of 8 is 4. And then bring down the plus 4. So negative 4 and positive 4, those add up to 0. Okay, so you're left with x. Well, look at that. It's true. Okay, came out to x, so that's also true. So because they both came out true, you can say that f of x and g of x are inverses of each other. So that's how you show that two functions are inverses. All right, so that takes us to the end of this lesson.